Hey, hello friends. I'll be with you in just one moment. All right. Hey, my name's Dan. And this is Daily Art Adventure number 925. I'm calling it A Little Gouache over Watercolor. Ready, set, go. Let me move you so you can look straight down on my artwork here. There we go. This is my piece of scrap watercolor that I test things on. And here's the watercolor. You can see me working on this yesterday when I was doing some of the ink lines with this kind of pen on top of the watercolor. All right, and this commission piece is nearly finished. I promise, it's nearly done. I could get by without doing any gouache at all, but I'm going to do just a tiny bit on this one. I'm doing two watercolor here sketches. I call them watercolor sketches because I feel like that gives me more leeway, a wider range. I can mess around with the medium a little bit more if I call it a watercolor sketch. All right, let me show you my gouache kit. I often tell you that I went for many years without, hang on a second, got company coming in the front door. I went for many years, this is 30 years ago. After college, I went for quite some time without buying any or using any gouache because I was disturbed by, I didn't know how to pronounce the name. Hey, Tolly, did you come up here to get your picture taken? Okay. Maybe? All right, here, stand right there. Oh, this camera's still warming up, so still turning on. All right, stand right there. This is Tolly. Can you pick that up for me? Ladies and gentlemen, my granddaughter Tolly. And I am going to do her portrait. And to do that, I need to take a picture. Okay, come closer, a little bit closer. Look over here at this finger. I've been taking several pictures of Tolly for several days. One of these days, I'm going to get one that's perfect. And that's Avi. I'm not doing his portrait yet. I'll do yours later, okay? But I already did Tolly's big sister, Lake, and I did a couple sketches of their big brother. Let me get out of the way. Of their big brother Israel. That's him way back there on the wall. All right, that's good, Tolly. Thanks, sweetie pie.
I have something for you.
You have something for me?
No.
What? What could it be? Oh, look at that beautiful flower. Did that come out of our front yard?
Mm-hmm.
It's a little wilty. I'm not sure why it's wilty. We do have a wonderful, what's the name of this?
There wasn't rainwater that much.
Yeah. Here, take this downstairs and put it in water, okay, so it'll stay fresh. All right, see you guys. I'm going to keep broadcasting. Okay, Tolly, will you take it downstairs for me? Thanks. And put it in water, or give it to Nana or Mama so they can put it in water for you. Okay, thanks. All right. So, here I am, gouache, pronounced gouache, by the way. Once I realized that that was the reason I wasn't buying it, then of course I got over it and bought it anyway. But just in case you want to know, it is pronounced gouache, like squash. All right. So I'm doing some red flowers here. A light pale red on top of the darker red, of course. No, nothing unique about that at all. Standard art procedure. Darks first, lights last. So if you ever have to paint flowers and bushes, you do the dark color first and then the light color on top of it. Right, I think that's all I'm going to do there. my monitor keeps falling out of my ear. Now, what else do I want to do on this? That might be it. I think I'm going to do just a little tiny bit of red up here on the roof. Just for fun. I don't want anybody to even be able to tell that that's gouache.
Send a picture of our waist towel on
I can't right now. I'm sorry, buddy. I cannot do that right. A little bit of red there. Again, real subtle. All right, now, I was wondering two things. Would I want to do a tiny bit of, and I think I do, just a tiny bit of pale green highlight on some of these leaves. The brush is too large for what I'm trying to do with it, really. Always use as large a brush as you can get away with, but of course you can take that to an extreme. I think that's all. Maybe a little bit here. Okay, now one thing I do want to show you before I leave this, finishing a watercolor with gouache, and I'm going to zoom in for you. All right, leave me alone, sweetie pie. Okay, no, oh, no. Okay, I'm getting some technical help here. I need to watch this one video, not any other video, okay? Yeah. If you do use gouache on top of watercolor, generally speaking, I want to disguise the fact. And I have two tricks.
Now it's a picture.
That's good, that's what I want. I have two tricks. Hello, Artist Ross, good. Two tricks for, if you will, hiding the fact that I used gouache. One is come back, if you're using pen and ink, this won't work otherwise, and do some ink lines on top of the gouache. Right, let me repeat that. If you use a little gouache on top of your watercolor, but you don't want it to look like a gouache painting. You want it to look like a watercolor painting, right? If that is the case. Now, if you're using pen and ink, here's one trick, which is to do some lines on top of the gouache, and that, especially kind of outlining it a little bit, that obscures the fact that you used gouache. All right, is that clear? And there's one more trick that you can do, and that is to do some watercolor on top of the gouache. But I'm looking around here. Oh, let's do some down here. So I did some pale green here. See, just by outlining, if you will, the gouache marks, obscures the gouache-ness. Forgive me. It makes it so it looks like it's watercolor. All right, let's, just for fun now, just for fun, since we all are in this together, let's go ahead and take the mask off of this. This is always the most exciting part. The whole process is like unwrapping a gift at Christmas time. Let's see what it really looks like, okay? By the way, here lately, when I'm doing commissions, watercolor commissions for people, I'm giving in my marketing and so forth, in my communication, I'm giving them 2 dimensions. I tell them the size, because this has been a confusion to me for years. It's like, what if you're doing a watercolor, what size do you tell them? Now, if you're the kind of, if you're the kind, a little bit of bleed there, if you're the kind of watercolor painter who paints the entire sheet, which many do, of course, and that's a perfectly fine practice, but I don't. I for some reason, I just like, the prettiness of that sharp, crisp, masked edge. Maybe I'm the weird one here, so be it. I'm the weird one. I like how that looks. Oh, by the way, this on the back is designed to help take out some of the warp. This is not 300-pound paper. This is only 140-pound paper. And so this, putting some tape on the back, helps keep the paper calmed down. Keeps it from curling so much when you're flooding it with washes. All right, so now, as I was saying, I tell people that the image is going to be 9 by 12, whatever this is, on a such and such paper. So I worked all that out ahead of time. There's always a part of me that wants to sign it down here, but I don't. I've got it signed right there. All right, so that's a tiny bit of gouache, as promised, and that painting is finished. Now let's go to the other one. This one needs a little more work, so that's what it's going to get. And here's my photograph. Here's the 2 photographs. This one that has been edited somewhat in Photoshop, and this one which is a picture of these trees, but the top. So I used both of those references. I'm taping that up there in front of me. And I feel like this painting just lacks a little something, and I'm not entirely sure what. So let's clean out an area here, clean out this large well, because I'm going to be trying to mix and match some colors. I'm going to try to make some very careful colors here. So I want a nice clean area to work with. And let's use a flat. I'm one of those, I don't know if it's weird, I'm one of those watercolor painters, I know I'm not the only one, who is really hooked on flat brushes. And many are not. Many are use a lot of, I'm wetting certain colors here. Many watercolorists use a lot of rounds. Good for them. For some reason, I just don't. Now here's a tip. As you know, all gouache colors can be re-enlivened, vivified by adding water, right? But I find you can it's too much work to try to re-enliven white. It's just too much work, and it just never comes out. So I always have a couple of tubes of clear, clean, fresh, I don't mean clear, you know what I mean, pure white gouache on hand. So that's why there's none of these wells have pure white, because I always carry this. There's a free tip worth knowing. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to paint this area right here. It's too dark, dull, dirty, and textured. Oh, there, how's that for a stack of words? Too dark, too dirty. That's good enough. Dark and dirty, close enough. So I'm going to try to mix up a color. Now hear ye. This is that looks like that might be just the right color, just right there. Whatever color orange that is, I don't care what color it is. Here is the difficulty. The difficulty, in my opinion, with gouache is that it never dries the color that you put it down. So let's do an old Drew Blair trick. Drew Blair's a famous watercolor. Wrong. He's a famous airbrush artist. All right, so the trick is doing a little patch of the color at the edge of a piece of paper. Okay, hang on. Sorry for the noise. I'm going to blow dry this just for a second. Noisy. Sorry. All right, that's good enough. So gouache, I think it all does the same. It dries darker than you put it down. So what I've just done is perfect. Wow, that was nice. Okay, no muss, no fuss, just do it. All right, now I'm going to paint very carefully. This is a time for coloring in the lines, ladies and gentlemen. Because in fact, on this painting in particular, I really do not want this to look like a gouache painting. I want it to look like a watercolor painting, even though I am calling it a watercolor sketch. So I don't think my client will complain or can complain. He has seen, these sketches before, and this will be in keeping with them. But I don't want it to have that sort of confused, mixed media. Can I use that term? Nothing wrong with mixed media, don't get me wrong. But I don't want it to have that mixed media feel. I want it to look like a watercolor. Now this might be the only part of the sky that I paint with gouache. As you can see, I'm being quite careful. I don't want to get this too thick, or it'll get a texture, a roughness on it, a thickness to it, and I do not want that. Again, I don't want it to be, I want it to look like a watercolor painting. Whew. Have I said that enough times yet? I fear that I have. So it's very possible, maybe likely, you just heard me say, I don't want this to be manifestly gouache. I want it to have the feeling or give the impression of a watercolor painting, not a watercolor and gouache painting, all right? And I feel quite confident that I'll be able to accomplish that. The only people who would recognize that I've used gouache in this would be a fellow artist, an artist who does watercolor and or gouache. I fully expect that a non-artist will never even notice. Anyway, so since I want this to look like gouache, it's very possible that I will use one or both of those tricks that I described just a few minutes ago for obscuring the fact that this is gouache. Trick number one is to, this is a different order than I gave it, but trick number one is do a watercolor wash on top of the gouache. Okay, now that just stands out. I was hoping this wouldn't happen. That stands out too starkly and dark, not darkly, stands out too light, doesn't it? So, so I'm going to mix up some more of this same pale orange, but this time I'm going to add a tiny bit of whatever this color is, kind of an aqua color to it. Okay, so now I've got I think that's going to be the right color. Should we do another test? You know, it would really be prudent to do that. So forgive me, bear with me. I'm going to make a loud noise again. So hang on just for a minute. I'm going to dry that. Noisy, 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 noisy. Close enough. All right, now what I'm trying to match is not this band of clouds, but the one above it. I think that looks okay. So, oh boy. So I feel at this moment like this is turning into a little bit more of a job than I really wanted. There you go. But the job is to get the job done. The job is to do a good painting, right? You do what a man's got to do, what a man's got to do. Unless you're a woman, then a woman's got to do what a woman's got to do. And once I'm assuming here that you can see the very fine ink lines that are already here on the painting, delineating clouds. I added that very late in the process yesterday, but right at the moment I'm really glad that I did, because those lines are helping me quite a bit. This would be, well, if those lines weren't there and I felt the need to use gouache in this manner, then I would have painted the gouache as I am doing, and then I would have come back and added those outliney lines afterward. But once again, I'm repeating myself. There are basically two tricks that I know of to obscure the reality that I used gouache in this watercolor painting. And the two tricks are to do watercolor on top of the gouache I'm sorry, I'm speaking slowly because all of a sudden I'm... Yeah, this job is growing as we speak here. Job, what do you call it? Job creep? Project creep? Something like that? The job just gets bigger and bigger. Okay, while I wait for that to dry, let's just do some other stuff. I'm once again mixing up a little bit darker and duller orange color, and I'm just going to take the gamble without testing it. I hope I don't live to regret this. And I'm doing the, it's already here, it's already indicated on the edge of these trees. I'm just re-accentuating it a little bit. And that is the orange sunset glow on the edge of these palm trees. Yep, that looks okay. Gouache has been a favorite among illustrators for many years. It's watercolor based. Well, I mean, it's water based, so very easy to use, very immediate, quite opaque, so you can cover up stuff. It's easy in that it's easy to use in that it is easily re-wetted, right? But of course, that very same characteristic, the fact that it's easily re-wetted, also is the difficulty with it, because at no point is the gouache ever stable. So you always, if you put anything on top of it, you have to be very mindful of the fact that it's, if you re-wet it, it will move around. And here again, just a little bit of accent at the end of this sidewalk. At the moment, it's a sidewalk into the sea. Can you see that? I believe the reality is that there's a step down there and a walk along the edge of the water. I'm pretty sure that that is the case. And that's enough anyway. Rinsing out my Winsor Newton Series 7. That's the best brush in the world. Now, this is too light. Here we go. I saw this coming a few minutes ago. You're going to get more than we bargained for. So, I'm going to do some watercolor washes on top of the gouache. Wash on gouache. Do you like that? But if I do a wash, and it's going to go over the trunks of these palm trees. That won't do. I can't have, you know. So here we go. I'm going to do a mask. I used a mask quite extensively on this painting. When the pen and ink illustration was finished, I masked out basically the white part of the house, not the roof, but the house. And then when that was dry, then I did big 3-inch brush. Is that a 3-inch brush? Yeah, 3-inch brush, blue and so forth, all over. And then I took the mask up, of course, and then painted some in the house. So that had quite a bit of masking in it. This has had none. Here's one kind of mask. I'll leave it at that for now. And this, in all of my watercolor kits, there's always a certain selection of brushes held out for the express purpose of applying a mask, because the bristles are all stuck together like as with a rubber cement kind of texture. So this is my largest mask dedicated brush. So here we go. I'm going to mask the trees, I should say, right through the middle here. And because I'm nervous about how this mask might affect the texture or the color of the tree, instead of just masking part of it, I just decided, it's like, whoop, I was doing it and said, oh, wait a minute, I better mask the entire trunk so that I don't have a seam going right through the middle of the trunk somewhere. An unseemly seam. That's what we don't want. We do not want unseemly seams. We only want seamly seams. Whoa. Uh-oh. That dried fast, didn't it? It's kind of fussy stuff, you know, it's not very precise. And by the way, they sell now, I don't have any on me at the moment, but they sell mask that comes in pens, needle, I don't know what to call it, needle, capillary action things. Anyway, you can get your mask all different kinds of ways nowadays. This is the old standby, a bottle in which you stick a brush. And I'm sorry, this is rather, it seems to me, rather dreadfully boring. You know, if I could snap my fingers and do the cooking show thing, you know, where Julia Child mixes up the cake, sticks it in the oven, and 2 seconds later, it's done. That's what I would like to do here. I'll resist the temptation to enter into my Julia Child voice. So the idea here, again, though, make sure you understand what I'm doing. I want to do some watercolor washes on top of the gouache. Get wash on gouache. Now, in this case, I want to do it for 2 reasons. Not only because I wanted to diminish the gouachiness of the gouache, I wanted to obscure the fact that I used gouache, but also I actually, now that I've got that sky all pretty, I've determined it's actually too pretty. It's too bright, too light. So I want to darken that. Oh, and I'm dripping gouache. I'm dripping a mask all over the place here, but I don't think that'll matter. I think it'll come up all right. I'm thinking about doing either some opaque white lines in the water, or off-white perhaps. I'm thinking about it. I'm also wondering if, like, maybe instead of painting those lines, though that might be a good place for scratching or even cutting the lines. Now that would be a better option if this were 300-pound paper, but it's not. This is plain old cheap 140-pound watercolor paper. Not the good thick stuff. The thick stuff takes scratching and cutting much better. Of course, the danger with this kind of paper is if you cut, you'd actually cut all the way through it, and that would not be good. Some of you are wondering, what do you mean by cut? Well, I mean exactly, literally what I say. You could take an X-Acto knife, and probably with a straight edge, you can cut a V shape. Like, say, if I wanted to make lines in the water, I would cut take my knife and go this way, then come back this way and pick up a almost microscopic sliver of paper out of that V that I've cut to create a white line. Do people do that? Yes, people do that. Watercolor, as I've said many times before, watercolor is a real bag of tricks. Medium. Ooh, look at that. That's a good discovery. The mask that dripped right there, I rubbed it off, and indeed it did discolor the painting. So now I'm just coming in with a pen and disguising the fact that that was a mistake. Does that make sense? So making this sidewalk now a little bit more gravelly, a little more texture in there, just to, again, to cover up that mistake. Now I have to wait till this is dry, and some of it's quite thick, so let me think, what else can I do? One thing I could do, possibly, I could at least experiment with scratching. I'm using the ink lines that are already there, of course, as a guideline for this scratching. And what I'm doing right now, of course, this is standard traditional watercolor technique. This is not cheating at all. In other words, yes, you can get into yes, you can get into American Watercolor Society with a watercolor hand scratching. And somebody told me recently, and I'm so surprised that I'm not sure that they're correct, but be that as, I'm certainly willing to be wrong, glad to be wrong. But somebody told me that American Watercolor Society is now, in fact, yes, admitting paintings that have, I don't know how much, little bits of opaque medium in them. That is quite a surprise to me. And I don't know if that's true. I haven't done any research. I don't really, evidently I don't care that much because I'm not trying to get into American Watercolor Society. But the traditional line, if you will, for getting into one of those, an organization like that, is you may not use any opaque medium, like gouache. Gouache is the word I'm saying there. Yeah, I think this is okay. Oh, by the way, and just again, if I want to, again, watercolor is a bag of tricks, you know, all kinds of things. If, and this is very possible, if I were to determine, now after I've done all this scratching, if I look at it and go, oh, you know what, I like it, but it's just too much, then I could, of course, take a pale blue watercolor and go over these scratches. And it's very possible that they would then, you know, go back, so to speak, be pushed back, be diminished to an appropriate degree. But at the same time, let me hasten to add, it's a little bit unpredictable exactly what, you know, watercolor would do on top of this scratching, because of course the scratched area is a very, the paper is very roughed up. So it would receive a watercolor pigment in a somewhat unpredictable manner. So then you could scratch it again. Get the idea? And again, that's what's meant by bag of tricks. Back and forth and back and forth. Well, I'll let that go at that. Let me see if there's, while I'm still waiting for this to dry. So on this particular painting, I did watercolor pencil, and then fountain pen with India ink in it, and then I did watercolor. Then yesterday I did pen and ink, and then I did watercolor on top of the pen and ink, and now, as you see, I did gouache on top of the watercolor, and pen and ink and scratching and so on top of the. So I don't know what layer that makes this, but again, bag of tricks. Anything is legal as long as it's not opaque, quote unquote. And even that now is in question. Okay, we're almost, oh, by the way, here's a good lesson. Why don't I get out my hair dryer? So glad you asked. Because a hair dryer, if this mask gets warm, evidently it adheres to the paper in a much more severe, extreme manner. It sticks way more to the paper, and is in some cases nearly impossible to get out of the paper. So that's why I'm not using a hair dryer. So glad you asked that question. Speaking of, is anybody actually asking a question? Hello, Anita and Arlie Barajas. Hello, Sharon London. Good to have you all here. I appreciate your company. All right, I'm just about ready. I think I'm going to go ahead and do step 1 in the disguising process of disguising the fact that I used gouache. One of the ways to do that is to do ink lines on top of the gouache. Of course, that only works if you're like this, if you're doing a pen and ink and gouache painting. So right, you can't add the ink lines to your watercolor if you don't already have ink lines. And I just realized something else that I thought about earlier while this is still drying. I'm going to try to mix up a medium blue, because this is that dark or light? I don't know. That's a medium. I call that a medium blue. And where's my test sheet? I have misplaced it in all of my hustle and bustle. Huh, that's crazy. All right, around here somewhere is a strip of watercolor paper, and you guys let me lose it. See, you knew it was going to end up being your fault one way or the other, didn't you? Okay, never mind. I won't do a color test. I'm going to do a very tiny one right up here. Okay, that's way too dark. So let's lighten that. Again, what I wanted the test piece of watercolor paper, it's around here somewhere, I just misplaced it, was to put a bit of blue down at the edge of it, dry it with a hairdryer, and then hold it up against this blue to do a color match. So this is much lighter. Let's see if it's closer. I don't think I want to do too much of this, but I think I can get by with a little bit of sky holes, literally sky holes kind of thing, not typically done in watercolor, say the way it is in oil or acrylic. That's a little bit too light, I think. That's enough, maybe too much. All right, I think that the tree is, the mask is dry enough. I'm up here looking for a brush. I want a fairly wide. Okay, here's an assortment. Let's pick one. Okay, let's get rid of the gouache tray now and bring back in the watercolor tray. And I'm going to be down here at the blue end of things, so re-wetting. All right, here's some of the brushes I picked up. No, don't need that one. Yeah, there we go. Rinse it in water. All right, now this is going to be a very delicate act. All right, I'm getting serious now. I really do want that piece of watercolor paper. Where on earth could it have gotten to? I typically put it under here. Oh, I did. I just pushed it under. All right, there we go. Whew. All is well. The Earth careens back into its orbit. All right, I'm going to. Uh-oh. All right. Boy, I'm glad I did that. It's beading up just a tiny bit. And my normal small watercolor kit is in another building, so forgive me just for one moment. I have to go out here to my attic where my big watercolor kit is out here in the attic. And I should have a couple different remedies. One is, there we go, this will do. One is a little container of liquid soap to change the viscosity of the paint. Or, instead, a little piece of hotel, motel soap, just a little, well, not little, it's a regular piece. All right, and I just need to rub my brush on that soap a little bit. All right, now I'm going to rub it again. Much better. Whew. All right, so it's not beading up now. There you go. Some of you maybe didn't know that trick, and now you do. That's a trick well worth learning. It doesn't take much soap at all. It's at the molecular level. You're changing the viscosity of the paint. All right, here we go. Scary moment. I'm going to begin. All right, before I do this, let me, I haven't said this yet. Here is a key principle. If you do watercolor on top of gouache, you only get one hit until it dries. You can't brush it twice. You can't go boom, boom. You can't go, you can't do it twice, let alone 3, 4, 5 times. You can't even do it twice. You do it one time, and then you have to let it dry. If you come back and hit it the second time while it's drying, that gouache is re-wetted. It will just spread, go everywhere, and in my opinion, completely ruin the illusion that you're after. Okay? Now I think I'm going to go ahead and put this, I'm going to use the ink line that I already put there. All right. Here we go. All right. Now I can use a hairdryer. No, I can't, because I'll heat this up and then it won't come off. So we will just twiddle our thumbs and a whistle. Okay, do you understand? I can't do anything until this dries. See, the way it is right now, I have re-wetted the gouache so it's in a very unstable state. It's only the fact that I'm not touching it again that lets it stay put. Okay, so in a minute, I'm going to do a second stroke of this pale blue up here, and I'm going to have to be very careful, you know, to go along the top of that first stroke. And by the way, so far, I am pretty much liking the way that is looking there. And you understand now why I couldn't do that blue paint right across the palm tree trunks, right? Because then I would have a blue stripe on top of the trees, which would not do at all. Okay, so what else? Oh, I know what I can do. Let me show you another trick, just for fun. I only have two colors here, blue and brown, but that'll do. I think I have 4 of these. I have orange, green, blue, and brown. I think I may have a red one too. I learned this from Tom Jones, the painter, not the singer. Some of you, who's Tom Jones, a singer? Anyway, my age is showing. A crooner rocker from the 70s. So, and again, I'm using my practice sheet to great effect in this episode, aren't I? And here's the blue. Rather unpredictable, but this is simply watercolor paint. I think I like the way the blue is going better. Watercolor paint. And often you can blot up, you know, some of the spatters if you don't like it, but that's a good little trick. Buy an assortment. This one is almost empty, that's why it's not working. Buy an assortment of little bottles. These happen to be made by Holbein Artist Water. Look at, they're actually made for watercolor spray bottle. How about that? I didn't even realize it. They were official. Indeed they are. I'm going to go up here in the sky. I'm not very happy with the little sky holes that I created a while ago. But I have a feeling that if I go over them, again, carefully, with blue, that they'll be fine. There we go. That's better. That's better. Yep. Perfect. Well, perfect. Nothing in this world is perfect. All right, let's not even get down. Let's not get philosophical here. Okay, that first line is almost dry now. I think I want the same color of blue, but no, I'm going to add a tiny bit more pigment to it. And you remember, this little puddle right here already has soap in it, all right? Whew, are you ready? Hold your breath again, please. Here we go. And I think I don't have any gouache up here, so I can go ahead and do a second layer way up here. So I'm making the blue sky up here just slightly more intense. More intense blue, more bluer blue. A little bit higher chroma. That looks pretty. I don't know if it'll stay that way. You know what I'm going to do here? Living dangerously. I am going over the water down here. Some of which, you remember, I scratched. Yeah, that worked out nicely. So those scratches that I created a while ago, I just pushed them back a little bit. All right. Well, I really have to. I should wait for that to dry a little bit. Let's look what I have here. What is this? It's actually a ball of masking fluid. This stuff dried up. It really does help in, uh-oh, not a happy development here. My. Oh my, that is not pretty. You see, it took off the paint. Now, good news is not a difficult fix. It's still better than it would have been if I hadn't done the mask. But now, what's it called? Project creep, something like that. The job just keeps getting bigger and bigger, growing and growing. Wow. So let that be a lesson to you, boys and girls. You can't always do a mask on top of. I knew that was a hazard. I'm a little surprised at the extent of the damage I'm getting here. Again, good news is it's not a difficult fix. I just need to now do some watercolor back on top of these tree trunks. So I'm going to have a little more interesting texture. Have I shown you my pencil, my stainless steel spoon trick? Sometimes if the paper gets roughed up, you can re-burnish the paper. In fact, you can use sandpaper first. And that's why this is here. I don't think I need sandpaper today, but I certainly do need the spoon. So that's a good trick. Doggone, I'm just full of good tricks today. A lot more than I expected. All right, let's, and now you know why I keep all these brushes that are used for a mask in a rubber band, so they're easily identified, so I don't accidentally pick them up. All right, here we go. We're back in the plain old painting with watercolor. And what color? Pale greenish brown, I think. And I can also tell that after I've done this, I'm going to come back on top of this with some pen and ink, with the little felt tip ink pen. I got a comment yesterday on one of my videos, not one of these, not one of the Daily Art Adventures, one of my old videos, and someone said, it was an honest question, so I'm not rebuffing it, but they said basically, well, couldn't you do the same thing in Illustrator? Like, couldn't you do the same thing on a computer? And of course, there is much that can be done on a computer today that used to, that was not the case. But this what I'm doing right here makes me think of, this is the kind of thing that would never happen on a computer, right? You can never get a whoops, like, whoops, the mask lifted up the paint that was underneath it, right? So for better or worse, and of course, in many ways, it's obviously better because you don't get the kind of mess that I'm getting here. But in other ways, it's worse because that's what's wrong with computer, is everything's perfect. You don't get any of this. So now I can use the hair dryer because there's no mask on here. So bear with me just a minute. I'm going to dry this and then maybe finish the illustration or the painting with pen and ink. So bear with me just a minute. Hey, before some of you leave, oh, and you guys are chatting up a storm and I'm ignoring you completely. Hello, just me. How do you stay patient? Throw the drawing painting. That's a good question. I don't. I talk to you. That's how you keep me patient. Hello, Warren. Hello, Radina. I'm doing very well. Thank you very much. Well, hello, Jeff612 from Montreal, land of my birth. Well, I was born in Hamilton, so, you know, not exactly Montreal, but I've been to Montreal. All right. Oh, I was going to say, before I go any further, let's just zoom way in here, and I want you to just take an evaluation of the sky. So the lesson here would be using gouache on top of watercolor and trying to make it look like you didn't use gouache on top of watercolor. All right? I'm fairly happy with this. Only an experienced, I think, probably watercolorist would recognize the gouache in here. A non-artist will just look at it and accept it just the way it is. So I'm fairly happy. I'm going to add a little bit more ink line. Again, the ink line helps obscure the gouachiness of the gouache a little bit. All right, now to the trees. Now, and frankly, so the texture on this tree now is a complete mistake. You understand that? But I love it. It's actually way better looking than it was before the mistake happened. Now it looks a little fuzzy and splotchy. So I'm going to disguise the mistake that just happened. In this case, the mistake was my mask pulled up watercolor. Right? You with me? That's the mistake that I'm covering right now. And I'm doing it by coming back in with fairly clean, not perfectly clean, but fairly clean ink lines. Redrawing, and oh, that makes me happy there. That was a Bob Ross's best quote, "Happy little accidents." That is, there's no question, that was just a happy accident. That is so much better looking than it was. And I don't know if you could see this or not. Let me zoom in again, real tight. Down here, there were actually areas of the trunk that were lighter in color because paper had gotten disturbed, pulled up a little bit. Some of the fibers had been, and so I actually drew circles, literally drew circles around the light areas, literal circles around them. Does that make sense? I don't know if you caught that while I was doing it. And now they look completely intentional, right? You do a similar thing over here. I'm really outlining parts of the tree trunk that were, frankly, were damaged when I pulled up the mask. But by applying now clean ink lines on top of that damaged area, it doesn't look damaged anymore. Everything looks like, oh yeah, no, there's no question the artist did that on purpose. Are you kidding? Right? And there's a dark area up here. Here's a light area. Let's draw little circles around them. Just outline them. And again, I'm really tickled. I would be hard pressed. In fact, there's no way I could, frankly speaking, there's no way I could reproduce the texture on that tree. Oh yeah, it's easy. You put down a watercolor, then you put a mask on top of it, and then you pull the mask up, and the mask pulls up the paint, and then you right? Are you with me? No, and even this one. All right, that's almost exactly what this painting needed. It was lacking something. Now it's doing much better. Let me show you the photograph again. I may be finished. There is in the photograph, this is actually a bridge in one of those low-lying, 10 feet above of the water kind of things that I'm assuming cars go across. And there are lights on the bridge, and I've been debating whether to still debating, hang on. While I do that, I'm going to draw a few more, just a little bit more texture up here in the sky. These are like leaves or bugs. Oh, this is Florida. These are all bugs. There are millions of bugs. I clearly remember my first trip to North Carolina, to Florida. I grew up in Michigan, born in Canada, grew up in Michigan. And my first trip to Florida, I think I was 20 years old, maybe 19. And I was absolutely appalled at the insects. Cockroaches, 2.5 inches long, and all kinds of other creatures. Oh my goodness. Now I live in North Carolina, I'm quite used to it. We really can't match Florida, but we're halfway in between anyway. So there's my homage to Florida. Bugs, millions of bugs flying underneath the palm trees. Those people just look like they're having fun. Slap, slap. Should we go in now? Ooh, yeah. Oh, I had some abstract lines. Good. Got them back. They got covered up by the gouache. All right, I'm going to call it done anyway, at least enough. All right, once again, the reason for this X on the back is it takes some of the wrinkle out of cheat paper. There's a good trick, eh? I'm really happy I've shown you guys a lot more good tricks in this broadcast than I thought. This afternoon, in a little while, I'll be going downstairs to finish my oil painting cityscape. One of the things I enjoy most about my career is the variety. People often say, what kind of art do you like the best? And really the answer is variety. It's sort of like saying, what kind of dessert do you like the best? Okay, then you have to have that every meal for the rest of your life. That's the only. Well, that would be a bummer, wouldn't it? I like key lime pie. I like double chocolate brownie, But I'd rather have, anyway, so I do appreciate this about my career, that I get to do wide variety. And yes, I also, in case you missed that, I say to my embarrassment, I have 2 studios. Most of you are going, golly, I don't even have 1 studio in my house. I've got 2. I know it's a long story. It's a long story. We're not really rich compared to 99% of the population. We are rich, of course. Through history. And certainly not the American population. According to America, we're barely middle class. But compared to humanity as a whole, we're filthy stinking rich. But anyway, I do have 2 studios. And again, long story, I won't get into it, but I was an illustrator for many years. So for decades, I have had an illustration studio, which is where I am right now. And then I started oil painting a mere 16 years ago, or 20 years ago. Really got serious about it 16 years ago. And oil painting is different, so different equipment and so on. So that's why I have 2 studios. Mostly because last time we went shopping for a house, my wife said, I want to find a house with a downstairs studio. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am fairly happy with that. I will look at it for a day or 2 before I ship it out. It's very muted. Frankly, it's a pretty fair reflection of the photograph. Yeah, I think it's all right. It doesn't have any reds or it's a little bit of orange in the sky and in the sidewalk, but it doesn't really have any red. Oh, it does right there, little tiny hints of red. But I think I'll call it Regina, tea and cake. That is wonderful. Hey Warren, I know I've been gone for several weeks and you have too, I guess. Hello, Ade. Dan, is there any video of ink drawing in the future? And do you like Franklin Booth style? Oh my good. Let me see. Do I have any devices? I don't have any. I will look them up, my friend. I probably do. Radina says, could you use white acrylic instead of the gouache? Ooh, good question. Good question. Good question. Let me come back to that in a second. Yes, of course you could, but no. Actually, if you're going to use acrylic in this manner, you'd be much better using gouache. That's not what I meant to say at all. You're much better using gesso. They say they still both start with the letter G. That's what caused the. Did you see my G there? Anyway, you're much better using gesso because acrylic is glossy and it will scream out loud on this surface. Let me look at it. Yeah, the way it is right now, this whole painting has that conventional watercolor flatness, dullness to it, and acrylic would mess with that. Gesso would be better because it's not as glossy. All right, thanks you all. Appreciate your company. And as I said, I hope to be doing a watercolor in a little while. Thanks for watching. Nice fan. Thank you. Tom Jones joke. Ah, Dave, way to go. You got me there, boy. That was way back. Nice. Dan Sharon saying, not nice fan. Thank you all guys for making your corrections and straightening me out here. All right, hey, let me move. Again, for some of you who've just joined in the last little bit, say, who's this guy that talks forever? That'd be me. The forever talker. I should rename my broadcast, maybe. The artist who talks forever. The droner. Art drone with Dan Nelson. Drone on with Dan Nelson. The eternal droner. The man that doesn't know when to quit. Oh yes I do. I'll show you a thing or two. I'm quitting right now.